3 points. And when they look back on that, Tim, will they have a bit of relief that could have got worse in the second half?
Could have got very nasty in that second period. I was hiding behind this table when I was watching. I mean, it was such a poor performance in the second half. They just blew a gasket there. I mean, I'm not sure about the changes what Nuno made as well. Listen, I thought when they first started the game was encouraged the way and Ndombele was getting on the ball, Lo Celso was busy, Dele Alli was getting on it, Sonny was, a threat up front. Harry Kane was dropping deep, far too deep in my opinion. In the second half you saw nothing of Kane, you saw nothing of Dele Alli, and Ndombele absolutely blew up, not fit enough. Lo Celso had to come off the field as well. There's so many players going down with cramp. Your main man Son was starved of any sort of service. It was a very, very poor performance in the second half and something he's going to need to look at. I think if you're going to play with that sort of intensity as you did at the start of the game, which they're capable of doing, we saw a large number of that squad play under Pochettino with a very high intensity. Under Jose it changed, it was a little bit more pragmatic. Now we haven't seen that intensity at the start of the game under Nuno so far this season, but we've seen 3 wins. But the writing's been on the wall for me. They've sat back. When they play at this stadium, the fans will not accept them sitting back. They did it against Watford. They got away with it because they won the game. Unless you're winning games, you have to play on the front foot. Now, he needs to get them fit enough to be able to do that. They've got the talent, and they're not going to play Chelsea. Let's have it right. They're not going to play Chelsea and the Man Cities and the Man Uniteds, Liverpool's every single week. But you need to play with identity. It's Tottenham Football Club. They expect a certain identity, and at the moment, I'm not sure what we are.
Only 5 games in, but going back to last season and the Champions League win, just how impressed are you with Chelsea and the way they're looking under Thomas Tuchel?
I think if I could describe them in one way, it would be efficient at the minute. They just do not look like conceding a thing. They look like, they don't look like scoring 5 or 6 goals, by the way, but they're just brutal, ruthlessly efficient at the moment. They've got a centre forward now that you expect him to cause danger every time he gets the ball. They've got a focal point that they can hit into him. They've got runners off him. They can cross the ball and expect him to be in there. As I say, they don't look like scoring at all. They've got a very solid base in midfield, big squad. I mean, they just look like they're a well-oiled machine at the minute. And even 1 or 2 injuries, as long as it's not to the main man up front, they look like they've got cover in every position as well. They're actually carrying 1 or 2 players as well that aren't really hitting it off at the moment. Verne has not been a good signing as of yet. Question marks about Havertz. He keeps playing him, but I'm still waiting to see, him put in some really good performances. So there's still a couple of expect to see a bit more out of, but even without them, they are just steamrolling at the minute.
They've just conceded 1 goal as well all season, Chelsea. Tim was talking about the atmosphere. Let's go back to the stadium and speak to Glenn Hoddle. What was it like, supporter-wise, second half inside the stadium, Glenn?
Well, it was very quiet. You could only hear the Chelsea fans, and rightly so, second half, for the performance that they put in. Spurs were very poor. What the guys were saying there, they were very tepid and timid. My problem is with them, I couldn't see how they were trying to win the ball back. I think Chelsea's shape, they had no idea of how they were going to win the ball back. It was like in between all the time, and they just got a chase in second half. Let's face it, it could have been a lot more, couldn't it? But I think Nuno's got a lot of work to do. They're not fit yet, whether that's because of the training or whether it's because of too many players haven't trained enough yet or had match practice yet. But I don't think you can lean on that and then blame that. Chelsea went up a few gears, and Tottenham, quite frankly, couldn't stay with them.
Tim's point, in time, at home, with the fans back in the stadium now, they'll expect more than that, won't they, in terms of positivity?
Well, very much so. I think it's okay talking about pressing and you've got to have the fitness, you've got to have the energy to do that. You can't do that for 90 minutes. Certainly this squad at the moment, in the shape that they're in, they can't do it. But it's also when they had the ball. I've never seen a Spurs side off the ball have no movement. There was like mannequins. There was no movement at all. The back players, Dyer and Romero, just had nowhere to go. They had nowhere to pass. Every white shirt was standing still for long periods. And in the end, I felt sorry for who was in possession of the ball. We've all been in teams like that, where it happens like that. You're going through that lack of confidence. And on this day, Chelsea had options left, right and centre. Their shape is a brilliant shape. three at the back and wing backs, when you're doing it right with the three in midfield, I thought the half-time bringing Conte on there in midfield and making it a three in there, a real solid three, actually just overpowered Tottenham. And in the end, they were brilliant, and they deserve to be top of there. They are the best team in the country. There's no doubt about it at this moment in time. Reversing it, I thought City were going to be the team to be knocked off the top. I think it's Chelsea now. I think City have got a lot of work. It's a hell of a game. They play each other next week. I think it's Chelsea, the ones that are actually going to be in control, and who's going to knock them off their pedestal. They're a very efficient side, but they've got creativity as well. But my word, they defend and they know every time they had the ball, you just knew, every player knew where to be. Whether it was a midfield, the wing backs on the opposite side of the pitch, were always in the right position. Tuchel, since he came in, has gone into a back three, and my word, he's got them playing it absolutely perfect, and that's why they're top of the league.
Indeed. Stay with us while we have a look at the goals, Glenn. The first one, which really set the tone early in the second half, Michael.
Yeah, the first goal was obviously key in these big games. Scoring the first goal is always important. Silva, not the tallest player on the pitch, but he hasn't half got a big jump. I just want to focus on Dele Alli here. He can spot him early. He knows that's his man. He's been assigned to him. And, I mean, eventually he just gets out-jumped and out-powered and strength. But I just want you to look carefully now at Dele Alli and his eyes and where he's looking. I think he's looking at the ball way too late. He's only just glimpsed at it now, and by the time he focuses where it is, he sets himself, he actually jumps. I think it's too late, and he doesn't get a jump at all, and Silva sort of almost beats him to the punch.
For all that creativity you're talking about with Chelsea, I mean, Glenn, that's such a disappointing way to concede the first goal for Tottenham.
It is. I think he was designated to pick him up, but I think he caught him cold. Silva actually stayed late. He went in late. He stayed on the edge of the box, and I think Dele Alli was thinking up from there. Is he coming into the box? And that's why I think at the end of the day, he was under the ball, and that's why Silva had a run on him. But it was, he wanted it more. Let's put it that way. He wanted that header more than Dele did. And at the end of the day, no one seems to put anyone on the back post anymore. Call me old school, but there's so many goals from corners that would actually be cleared if someone was on the back post. And again, keeper had no chance.
Chelsea's second oldest Premier League goal scorer, incidentally, Thiago Silva, only Didier Drogba ahead of him. Sad to say, past you, Glenn, today on that particular list. 2-0, N'Golo Conte. Similar to the goal we saw in our first match, Tim, but again, from a Tottenham point of view?
They've got their midfield players in there. There's too much space in that D area. They give the ball away cheaply. Celso gets robbed of it, but the intensity of the press there. Kante picks it up. Absolutely acres of space. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. It's not the best of strikes. Gets deflection off of Dyer and flies past Lloris. But if you look at there, Ndombele, he is shattered. He cannot move. Look, Dyer's telling him, get in there. You need to be there. You need to get an opposer Kante there. He cannot get there. He physically could not get there. 57 minutes gone. That cannot be right. You don't play the kid. If he's clearly not fit, do not play him because he's letting the side down. He cannot lift his legs off the ground. And Kante there just takes a pot shot, and it's very unlucky, obviously, two hands, because he gets lucky off the post, and the spin just takes it past Lloris. But defensively, very, very poor. You cannot leave that sort of space there in the centre of your goal, 25 yards out.
And is that because, obviously, there's a new manager, Glenn, but the changes again, another 4 today. They haven't played a lot of football together. Romero's come in, his first taste of the Premier League from the start. Yeah,
I do think they are behind, and they look like that. I mean, the first 20 minutes of any football match, if you're a professional player, you should have the intensity, you should have the energy to close down and have a picture in your mind quickly when you're on the ball. And slowly but surely, they got fatigued very quickly. And as Tim says there's too much space on the edge. I also thought, Tim, that Højbjerg, I think Dyer was actually shouting at Højbjerg to go out. He was a spare one. Dyer had somebody to pick up, but he could have actually gone. He stood his ground and tried to block it. I thought he could have gone face to face with her. But you're right, and Ndombele, in the end, he's got to get himself fit to play football. And he's not fit enough, the lad. He's got ability, but the thing is, even if he's on the ball, Lo Celso, Dele Alli on the ball, there's no movement. There's no movement from Tottenham. That's what concerned me. Watching here at the stadium where you see it off the ball, there wasn't enough movement off the ball. There really wasn't. So whoever was in possession was under real pressure to find any sort of pass. In the end, they went back or they went square. and then obviously it just allowed Chelsea to bank in, and they're a very hard nut to crack.
Glenn, do you think the movement up front is not there because when they look at who's in possession of the ball, they don't trust that they're going to have the range to be able to find them?
Well, certainly at Palace, I think that was the case. But today, you've got a few players that can look up and get their head up a little bit. So there's no one else there, Tim, on the bench or anyone else that's injured that's going to come in and actually make them passes. But as we know as midfield players, we need the movement first. You need that movement first. You cannot hit balls and able to get on the end of it. You need that little picture in front of you. None of them had it. And I felt sorry for some of them players in that midfield area or the fullbacks when they come out. There was no movement off the ball. And I think it's a real concern. There's a lot of concerns defensively. As you said earlier, they're not going to play Chelsea in this shape every week. And Chelsea know how to play it better than anyone. So against lesser teams than Chelsea, they have got to have better pitches in front of them to actually hit the passes and go from there. There is ability in the squad, but my word, I think at the moment it was a reality check today.
From a Chelsea point of view as well, they've scored 3 goals today, Michael. Lukaku hasn't scored any of them. And Rudiger already the 10th different goal scorer with that 3rd goal, which is a huge positive when you're sharing goals around like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. They're scoring all types of goals as well. They're scoring counter-attacking goals, build-up goals, set pieces as well. You know, you see all the players in the box here, 5 players in the box. Even Rudiger, centre-half, looking like an accomplished finisher. So yeah, I mean, everything at the moment, they just look so well-oiled. Such a well-oiled machine, Chelsea, at the moment. And, you know, it's going to take a Manchester City next week or a Liverpool or someone like that to try to knock them off their perch at the moment, because, you know, you can just see them devouring any lesser teams on current form.
Great movement from Rudiger there. He just pulls off, doesn't he? And great pick out from Werner, and he just got a swivel on that one. Great contact, but he's been a revelation. Rudiger, I mean, Frank Lampard never gave him a look in. No. He's decided to go free at the back, and this kid has been a real leader for him.
Glenn, you're going to watch the North London derby with me in here next weekend. There's a scenario that if Arsenal win 2-0, they go above Tottenham in the table. Yeah. Sorry to tell you, but who would have thought that a few games ago?
No, well, that's right. They were top of the league after 3 games. It was a little bit false, if I'm honest. I've got to say, against Wolves and Watford. But here they worked extremely hard against Man City. They put in a stint, and they didn't do that today. But they were top of the league. Yeah, who'd have thought that? Now, you know, they've lost this derby. Now they go into Arsenal game. This is a massive game for them. It really is, for both clubs in many ways, because Arsenal are just getting a little bit of form, some points on the board, and you know, Spurs are in this little semi-rut, I've got to say. And you know, to go against Arsenal, the North London derby, and their big rivals, it's probably coming at the wrong time, but it's there, and they've got to raise themselves. They really have. I'm just concerned when they've got the ball and without the ball. Both times they don't look to me as if they know what they're doing. They don't know what the drill is. They don't know where everyone should be. I don't see a little system within a system. It's all a little bit off the cuff, if I'm honest.
Glenn, thanks very much indeed. We will see you for the North London derby next weekend.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Square then, no goals at half-time in the